Okay, I hope everyone is feeling as invigorated as I am by our opening panel and our opening speakers. For our next session speaker, we have invited Dr. Greg Williams, president of Odessa College, to introduce our first keynote speaker. Dr. Williams.
Good morning. I have the pleasure this morning of introducing our next speaker, Dr. Eduardo Padrone. He is, as I've done my research, I have found that he is one of the most accomplished and impactful educators that we have had here in the modern era. And I think we're in for a treat today. He has advised me to keep my introduction brief, so I will try to do so, even though I have a lot of material to work from. Since 1995, Dr. Padrone has served as president of Miami-Dade College, a national model of student achievement and the largest institution of higher education in America. An economist by training, he earned his PhD from the University of Florida. In 2009, Time magazine included him among the 10 best college presidents in the United States. In 2010, Florida Trend magazine named him Floridian of the Year. And in 2011, the Washington Post recognized him as one of the 8 most influential college presidents in our nation. The Carnegie Corporation of New York granted Dr. Padrone its prestigious Centennial Academic Leadership Award. He is the first college president to receive the National Citizen Service Award from Voices for National Service. He has been named an Ascend Fellow by the Aspen Institute, and he is the recipient of the Hesborough Award, the highest honor in United States higher education. Dr. Padrone is widely recognized as one of the top educational leaders in the world. 6 American presidents have selected him to serve on posts of national prominence, and his energetic leadership extends to many leading organizations. He serves on the boards of the Council of Foreign Relations, the Business/Higher Education Forum, the League of Innovation, RC 2020, the College Board Advocacy and Policy Center, the White House Fellows Selection Panel, and I can go on and on and on. He is also a past chair of the Board of Directors of the American Council on Education and the Association of American Colleges and Universities. I will stop now so we can bring him forward so he'll have time to talk. Dr. Padrone, please come forward.
Good morning. Thank you, Greg. I'd like to meet the guy that you just introduced when I'm finished with my presentation here today. And I bring you greetings from Miami, the closest city to the United States. And it is, in fact. You know, when I came in, Judith gave me a choice between this traditional microphone or the lapel microphone, but she explained to me that this traditional microphone has an accent. So I decided that that would add tremendously to the diversity that you all seek in Texas. So I'm gonna use this one. Can we reconcile Carol's and Mark's points of view? I think we can. I truly believe that we can. On the other hand, I couldn't help but thinking that something I believe very strongly in, which is our industry, the higher education industry, still needs to come into the 21st century knowledge economy. And many of us do not like to admit that, but the fact is that we do need, just like any other industry coming to the 21st century knowledge economy, it's a must, not only for the individuals that we served, but for the country. It's a true imperative. When we realize the fact that today, without a post-secondary credential, your chances of achieving the American dream are basically none. We need to really do whatever is necessary, again, for the sake of every American and for our nation. And there is no doubt that asking the questions of purpose and value has never been so quite important. So my congratulations to the Texas Higher Education Board, coordinating board, for having the audacity to raise the big questions and for inviting me to be here with you today. We all know that the revolution is upon us, and not a single aspect of society will go untouched, least of all the world of higher education. And since I was asked to bring my perspective and hold nothing back, I want to state my bias clearly. The challenge of how we teach and learn in this country is the most profound and the most daunting challenge we face as the world of work and commerce continue to turn on its head. This nation doesn't have a more pressing challenge. The world is suddenly flat and hot, to quote Tom Friedman, and a single click of a mouse can change the course of history. They know this in China, Egypt, Syria, and so many other places, in a world that seems to fit inside a cell phone. We also know it is so, and so do our students. All of us are surfing a great and growing mountain of information and new knowledge. Suffice to say, we have never known change at this velocity, a kind of global vertigo where careers and entire industries appear to disappear in no time. And it's really just the beginning. Some time back, I had the opportunity to deliver a commencement speech at Rollins College in Central Florida. Commencement speakers are, of course, expected to deliver a bit of sage advice. So one of the first things I said was, don't believe too strongly in this degree you are about to receive. Well, you can imagine how that went over. Puzzled looks everywhere, especially from the parents who had emptied their bank accounts to make that degree possible. I did reassure them, however, it was all worth it. And I do believe that, without doubt. I also wanted to make a point. Yes, the degree is a valuable resource, but the journey that lies in wait will demand a deeper resource which no credential can guarantee. So what is this resource? A remarkable professor at Miami-Dade College told me he often witnessed what he called the quickening. He said, when that moment happens, when that flash of insight occurs, I'm there. He went on to say, what these students understand is often beyond content. They rediscover a piece of themselves, their own capacity to learn, their fascination. God knows what they can accomplish when that happens. The first line of Miami-Dade College's mission statement declares that our work is to change lives through the opportunity of education, which says to me that our work is ultimately, hopefully, about transformation. The speed and volatility of the workforce has less and less respect for the particular degree, but rather wants to know what and who is behind it and how well it interacts. Many years ago, as many of you I'm sure know, the futurist Alvin Toffler wrote, "The literate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn." There are a lot of PhDs in this room, and none of us are exempt. I believe this has never been more true than today. I submit to you the obvious. The transformation is not easy. It is especially difficult when many of our students arrive in need of remediation, lacking confidence, and a half step short of that experience of quickening. But the reality is that they must succeed. The alternatives are untenable for the students, their families, their communities, and yes, our nation. The Georgetown Center for Education and the Workforce estimates that 63% of all the new jobs in the US will require some degree of college learning by the year 2018. Other studies that I have seen says that already over 2/3 of all the new jobs created in America require a post-secondary credential. Additional studies posit the lifetime earnings difference between a bachelor's degree and a high school completion in the range of $1.2 million. Clearly, the days of achieving a middle-class existence with only a high school diploma are fading in the rearview mirror. But our predicament as educators is somewhat preposterous. We're preparing many of our current freshmen for jobs that don't even exist yet. And if that's not daunting enough, the Bureau of Labor Statistics estimates millennials can expect to hold 15 to 20 jobs over a lifetime. How do we prepare them for that? So different from what we knew in America as recent as 40, 50 years ago, when most of us could go into jobs with little education, go into factories and offices, make a good wage, spend 30 years in a job, buy a home, couple of cars, put our children through school, and retire with a good pension. I read a lot. I try to see around the bend, to envision what might be and what can we do better and different. To put it mildly, the workforce of tomorrow and the greater society are moving targets. And while I am concerned with content and methodology, including the inevitable onset of more virtual learning, I am much more interested in how we fulfill Alvin Toffler's notion of literacy. How well do we reflect, adapt, and change course? And what is the toolkit of skills and understandings that we need to instill in our students? How do we help them to navigate and flourish in this constant sea change? Being techno-literate is good but hardly enough. How do we help them to find their own depth as people and contribute to a better world? Perhaps in looking to the future, our wisest first steps should be to look very closely at what's right before our eyes and in the mirror. Quite frankly, it begins with us. Everything about our institution speaks to the neat organizational divisions of another era. I'm not suggesting that we strip away our departments and disciplines, but I am raising the question of how we traverse those divisions on behalf of our students. Because one thing is certain, the students arriving on our campuses today, low income, academically underprepared, and with little or no family precedent to guide them. Their experience does not fit into our organizational model. But the undeniable fact, and God bless them for it, is that they are here. They chose to step through the door, hopefully not a revolving door. And that means that their challenges are now our challenges. If they have to adapt, so do we. The whole idea of swim or sink, the idea that many of us subscribed many years back of the student right to fail, can no longer work today. We all have a shared responsibility. The student's success just does not depend on the student. It depends on us too. and we all need to work together to accomplish that. Everyone is for change, as long as it is the change they want. What I have found to be true time and again is that the most difficult aspect of applying a new strategy is changing the underlying mindset. I really learned that a long time ago when I became president and did the sacrilegious thing of abolishing the faculty senate. And there is no shortcut because the pervasive mindset of the institution is really a lot of individual mindsets. Each person is responsible for their own understanding, each one coming to terms with what the change means to them, each deciding to contribute his or her effort to the process. But difficult does not mean impossible, and hesitant, even doubtful, doesn't erase dedication. Today, nearly everyone at Miami-Dade College is engaged in what has become a global rethinking of the student experience. And we're not talking about a pilot project with 100 students. We are now 3 years into what we call the Student Achievement Initiative. The goal is to dramatically improve a student's success and deepen learning for each student. Well over 400 faculty and support staff have served on planning teams that have morphed into implementation teams. And nearly everyone among our nearly 7,500 faculty and staff are engaged in the implementation process. I could easily spend my time with you talking about this project because in fact and in feeling, it's more than a project. I think most of the college recognize this is our chance, a real chance to move the needle on completion, and we have been very careful with our implementation, ensuring that we had some early wins, initiatives that show the supporters and doubters that we were on the right track. We definitely have a momentum now, and there is no turning back. But suffice to say, it's about as comprehensive can be. We are all up to our eyeballs in this endeavor. Everything is under the microscope. A 3-tier case management advisement model that starts in high school and moves through graduation, online and mandatory in-person orientation for every incoming student, no easy task for such a huge institution, assessment in math and English basic skills and week-long boot camps to elevate competency, reinvention of remedial coursework, individual education plans for each student from day one with a specific and focused degree pathways, and lastly, communities of interest focused around academic majors. These communities, up and running in health science and business, and soon in social sciences and others, will provide students a building set of peers, faculty, advisors, tutors, and other support elements. That's a very skeletal summary, but it reflects a number of themes. First and foremost, we are unapologetically intrusive, and we are honing systems to intervene long before a student is in academic or financial crisis. In the same way, we have narrowed the choices in the academic pathways, guiding students very early into academic majors. All of our research confirms this strategy in support of completion. But we realize that often our best academic and support efforts are not enough. We have added a very significant element of personal support through a partnership with the national anti-poverty organization, Single Stop USA. For us, that was crucial when you consider that 68% of my students are low income and 48% live in poverty. In doing so, we are reaching beyond the traditions of higher education and student support and addressing the personal challenges that wrecked too many of our student dreams. The single-stop technology platform provides access to a full range of federal and state benefits and other services that includes tax preparation, financial, and legal counseling. Here is the result. On average, single-stop is doubling the maximum $5,500 Pell allotment in benefits and services for the recipients. And most importantly, preliminary studies suggest retention and graduation rates increasing as much as 15%, 1-5. This is a model that has immense potential for colleges across the nation. And we're working closer with single-stop to bring the program to scale significantly. In spite of all of this effort, nothing we're doing changes the level of uncertainty in the world beyond our classrooms. But I mentioned earlier that we can provide our students an essential toolkit that equips them to navigate the rapids. And more importantly, we can establish a new compact with the companies and industries that are navigating the same rapids, and in many cases, creating the turbulence. This sort of collaboration with business, if I may say, is not rocket science. That the people who are preparing the next generation of workers should be intimately involved with those who will employ those workers is pure and simply common sense. Over the past years, as was mentioned before by my great colleague, Carol Schneider, the Harris Research Group, on behalf of the Association of American Colleges and Universities, has been talking with Fortune 500 leaders, and they are telling us what they need from our graduates. Much of it is surprising, given the intense focus on STEM or jobs in science, technology, engineering, and math. The two reports over the 3 years summarize industry needs with the term 360-degree people, which I love. Business leaders wanted specific skills in a given field, and yes, they wanted technological acumen. But more than anything, they wanted graduates with those navigational skills I mentioned before. People who could think critically and solve problems, and work effectively as members of a team. And more, they wanted those who were conscious of cultural diversity, trends in sustainability, and those who understood the importance of contributing to a larger community. Yes, I am a great believer in the value of liberal education. And that doesn't mean that every student should be studying Latin, right? Or the classics. But I am convinced that our duty is not only to provide our partners in business with technically skilled graduates, but also to give them real people, grounded in self-awareness and mindful of society's movements. To that end, we at Miami-Dade College initiated an earlier project to establish learning outcomes, as I'm sure many of you have done, for each student who passed through our classrooms, regardless of their major. We wanted to clarify what it meant to gain an education from Miami-Dade College. And we wanted those learning outcomes to reflect a relevant liberal learning agenda for a new era, both for the associating arts as well as the associating science. This too was no small undertaking. As you may be getting the picture, we are not strangers to the change process. You can imagine some of the battles as faculty who clearly led this project whittled down all their divergent priorities to a set of 10 college-wide learning outcomes. The final list included emphasis on communication skills, critical and scientific thinking, problem solving, cultural perspective, the environment, civic responsibility, and more. This too was powerful. A powerful exercise in learning to adapt, adjust, and work across many nooks and crannies of our bureaucracy. We learned a great deal. And suffice to say, this project, which began in 2006, remains the backbone of the learning agenda at MDC. But back to this new compact with the world of work that was so much discussed by the panel before. To me, these relationships are the proverbial no-brainer. And we have miles to go before we fully profit from the effort. And the message is definitely about profit. Clarifying with all of our business partners what can be gained in working closely with higher education, but particularly with the colleges that are focusing on direct entry to emerging industries. We can be the minor leagues, the training ground, and we can shape the talent to specification before the players go to the big show. The examples are compelling. The Business Higher Ed Forum, a long-standing advocate that lives up to its name, is working with businesses and higher ed leaders in metro regions across the nation. Companies that all of us recognize, like Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, Accenture, IBM, NextEra Energy, Merck Pharmaceutical, and many more, are providing resources and expertise on real job development that meets their needs without additional expense and training. And they are getting a real return on their investment. In Miami, we were approached by the biological science industry about 3 years ago. Their message was clear. We have rapidly growing industries in biotech, biopharmaceuticals, bioinformatics, and more. But the Bachelor of Science graduates from the universities aren't at all prepared for industry needs. As you will know, most of the baccalaureate programs in biology aim to prepare students to enter the medical profession. So 1 year later, only 1 year later, Miami-Dade College had a Bachelor of Science degree in biological science. Our associate degree completers and others transfer into the bachelor's program, and by the end of this year, we'll have about 200 graduates ready to work in these fields, and most of them with job offers already. The same result occurred for 6 cohorts of associate degree graduates trained for the nuclear energy field. More than 100 have been hired directly upon graduation by Florida Power and Light. And it's a funny situation when we have graduation. One end of the stage is the academic dean extending the diploma, and at the other end is an executive from FPL giving them a job offer. It doesn't get any better than that. Biotech and nuclear energy might be rocket science, but these partnerships really are no-brainer. A last word for now on business partnerships. The word is internships. MDC partners with a forward-thinking organization called Year Up. 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, Year Up was profiled on 60 Minutes. It presented a great case for business leaders to invest real money for interns. The early cohorts have been prepared for the mid-skill positions in information technology that every company in the universe needs today. We worked with inner-city youth living on the edge of the opportunity gap, giving them a leg up in skills and corporate etiquette. Businesses like Google, Facebook, Bank of America, AT&T, and 100 others paid $23,000 for a 6-month internship for an expertly trained mid-skilled worker. The proof of their investment is that they hire half of the interns into full-time jobs and thank us for saving them money and time in recruitment and training. This is how we reinvent the thinking about higher education and the business partnerships. Today, MDC has more than 600 business experts who sit on our advisories, on our various professional and technical advisory committees. Clearly, the sky is the limit for higher ed and business if we work together. But not everyone fits the mold. In fact, some are breaking the mold. The next word in supporting the new generation of business leaders is entrepreneurship. Let's remind ourselves that Bill Gates worked out of a garage, and Mark Zuckerberg's, his classroom was a laptop. They were very smart, and yes, very lucky. But we can take the luck out of the equation and train entrepreneurs in our classrooms. And once again, we can partner with those who are already business leaders. I visited Harvard's and MIT's entrepreneurship institutes 2 years ago and wondered why it couldn't happen for the young, creative sorts in the neighborhoods of Miami. Right now, there are countless Googles and Facebooks and Car2Go, quality innovations struggling on the streets of our communities. All they need is a supportive environment, and I know our institutions can provide it. And every business leader with whom I have spoken can wait to share what they have learned. Our communities throughout this nation need to keep their young talent. There are already plenty in Silicon Valley, Seattle, and Texas, Austin, Texas. If we're talking about the future, then we're talking about technology and its impact on education. This is a big topic, prone to superlatives and the next big thing mentality. It is plenty big and important without the exaggeration. The revolution is here, and we know without a doubt that technology is and will continue to change education. But a dose of reality, or at least the dose of evolution, is in order. A recent study of 57 colleges in Virginia and Washington State found that online courses weren't the surefire better option. In fact, by all accounts, learning occurred more effectively across the board in front of a blackboard. MOOCs, those fabulous, massive, open online courses, which were sure to replace every campus-bound class on earth, have a completion rate of about 10%, and a little idea on how to assess or credit those who do complete. But now we're talking about blended or flipped classes, and the potential is enormous. In fact, MDC is working with edX, the MOOC partnership from Harvard and MIT, on applying the blended format to some of our college prep math courses. It is foolish to deny the potential value here, the transformational value. But what I'm not willing to do is sacrifice the best of what face-to-face learning provides, the partnerships between faculty and students that can change lives. In fact, those relationships remind us just how immense and varied our learning capacity is, and ultimately, how valuable these new forms can become. One last partnership before I close. We began our work on the learning outcomes with the Florida legislature's warm breath on our backs. For those of you from our respected state houses, I'd like to say, we feel you. And personally, demonstrating the productivity of our efforts and responding to a fair set of performance-based funding protocols are not unreasonable requests. But this is my request. Trees to my eyes for a moment. See through my eyes for a moment, through the eyes of your partners at colleges and universities. What we do is not discretionary. Our students are the lifeblood of your state and this country. And when it comes to education, ours has lost focus over the past 35 years. We all know the statistics of how well our 15-year-olds fare on the international test. 30th in math literacy, 27th in science, 20th in reading, contrary to our stubborn traditional view that we are number one. We are average at best, and we have enormous numbers of low-income students who tested into the lowest levels in all three areas. State funding to education across the country, particularly to community colleges, has fallen dramatically over the past 20 years. Education may be the largest discretionary element of the state budget, but our understanding of the need, especially today, should include more urgency and less optional. Simply stated, we will not be able to compete without a dramatic shift in understanding about the value of education, not just for a privileged few, but for every young person in the communities across our nation. I leave you with the same faith in the young people of our country that I have always had. I am convinced that we are not merely educating a new generation of workers across an amazing breadth of new industry, but most importantly, we're educating citizens, participants in a political and economic system that has no equal in the world. But it's not a secret that our civic dialogue has faltered. We are too proud partisans, too often forsaking the common good, perhaps the most cherished notion in all of democracy. But there is a generation coming to maturity that believes in magic. We all know them. That taps a keypad and talks to strangers on the other side of the world, wondering, I'm sure, why the elders can't do the same across an aisle. They can change the conversation if we help them. If we show them that what we've built for more than 200 years is good, even great, but they live outside the boxes in which we have grown up. That is the essential gift of youth, and such an advantage has never been more crucial or timely. At best, we can run alongside for a time, steering and guiding, asking the right questions. We're their ushers on the way to a new time. Once again, thank you for inviting me and for having the opportunity to join you. Thank you.
We invite questions for Dr. Padrone from the audience.
I'd like to know more about this master planning, this academic learning outcomes process you describe. I just briefly looked on the internet to find some data that I could look at. Could you direct us to where I could find some literature?
Yeah, I brought some information that may be useful to you. My teacher is here. Everything that inspired me to get involved in this project was during my membership on the board of the Association of American Colleges and Universities. They have an incredible amount of information and resources and guides on how to involve your institution in this process. I can tell you this, it changed the institution. And what we did, as you know, every change at an academic institution, if the faculty is not on board, it becomes an exercise in futility. It has to come from the faculty. They need to become believers. They need to be the ones at the forefront of the movement. But we wanted to really answer the question, what is the kind of education that we want to provide our students, and what does a Miami-Dade diploma really means? And for that, we felt that we needed to extend the conversation to alumni and to business leaders. So we ended up with the present students, alumni, business leaders, and the faculty developing a covenant in which we all committed to the principles that were outlined. The process took some time, started in 2006, and we work at it every day. Because, as I said, it's not just for the liberal art courses. These are the outcomes that we want for every student at Miami-Dade College, regardless whether they're in the technical programs or in the Associate of Arts or the baccalaureate programs. And it involves thousands of courses, not only overall, but the programs, making sure that they reflect these outcomes and these learnings. but also every single course. So we use this experience on a yearly basis to improve teaching and learning. We see the result of the assessment, and we use that to basically ask the questions. Why is it that the students are not doing so well in this or that? And the faculty, of course, is responsible for making sure the curriculum is updated and is changed to be able to get the students to improve in their outcomes. It has really brought, has done away with the silos at the institution that so permeate the college. So what we have now is people talking to each other in the various disciplines from the two extremes. And it's been very good for us. And that, we have what we call the learning agenda that is more than a 10-year process that we have been engaged in. This was probably the most substantial, the most difficult one to accomplish, but it's one that was able to engage the overwhelming majority of the people at the campus. And that has been now brought into the whole initiative that I described, the Student Achievement Initiative, which, I remember when I first started at Miami-Dade College, that, as I said before, the philosophy was the student has a right to fail. And where the student succeeded or not was not the problem. The emphasis was just on access and giving them access, and they have the right to fail. Many of them come unprepared. We did not provide the supports that were necessary to a totally different frame of mind, which is student success is also a responsibility. And setting that framework has been very important for us to initiate all the transformations at the college, and it's working for us. And I know some of my colleagues here are involved in similar efforts in Texas, and I really commend them for that, because I can tell you we're a so much better institution today than we were even 10 years ago, because of the realization that we couldn't continue to do things the old way. And, but I'll be happy to guide you to our website and also give you some information that I have. Yes?
I think I heard you say that you abolished the faculty senate at Miami-Dade. I wonder if you'd discuss what your intentions were and what was the outcome of that.
Do you read the Chronicle? If you read the Chronicle, my name, and I was front page of the Chronicle for 3 or 4 weeks. When I became president of the institution, there was a movement to unionize. And the reason for that was because I was very honestly at the beginning presented my idea of what we needed to do in order to really become a college responsive to the students that we serve. And I outlined a series of reforms and so forth and so on. So a group of faculty that had for many years tried to unionize the college saw that as a great opportunity to unionize, because there was fear, there was anxiety, what is going to happen tomorrow, are we going to keep our jobs, etc. So in that process, I said at the beginning that if the union comes into place, one of the things that I wanted to do is making sure that academic decisions were more collegial, that the decisions of the institution, academic decisions, needed to also have the participation of other people and students, etc. And I said that I was not about to deal with a faculty senate and a union at the same time. And unfortunately, to be totally honest with you, the agenda of the faculty senate became the me agenda. It was more about salary and benefits than really academic decisions, as it should be. I strongly believe that academic decisions should be the domain of faculty, and I totally defend that 100%. But when the agenda of a body that was constituted to do that will seldom have any item of academic discussion on the agenda, and will be mostly about overloads and the rate of overloads and this and that, I said, we need an alternative council that will deal with academic decisions. To make a long story short, the election took place, the union won, and that same day I basically eliminated the faculty senate, which the union loved, because the union did not want a competing body discussing with administration. So it ended up being okay, but it was not a healthy exercise by any means. And I always said that I am privileged to have the best faculty there is anywhere. And my faculty, if I tell you otherwise, I will be lying to you, are the most productive and the most caring and committed faculty you'll ever find anywhere. But we need to go through some changes in order to come to where we are today. Any others? Carol?
Yes, Carol Schneider from AAC&U, and thanks for the nice comments about our work. But you know perfectly well, you were an architect in the vision that has guided what we're doing generally. And because you have been such a creative leader at Miami-Dade, both in thinking where things need to go and moving broad-based systemic change forward, I'm interested in what your own thinking and perhaps practice is on what strikes me as one of the real challenges for the degree of intentionality that you're talking about. You have a set of outcomes, you're committed to them across the institution, you're trying to make every student's success a shared responsibility. But you, like every college and university, has a growing number of adjuncts on your faculty. So how are you bringing adjuncts into this intentionality?
Adjuncts?
Yes, contingent faculty. How are you bringing them into the shared goals you have for Miami-Dade, and what might the rest of us learn from what you've been doing as we think about this issue more broadly?
45% of my faculty are adjuncts, and they are crucial to the work of the institution. It's not by design, it is by the economics of the institution. I admit that. So, but we try to provide the adjunct faculty a sense of belonging, a sense of ownership that is very unique. The adjunct faculty, we do a lot of professional development for the adjunct faculty. We do a lot of special things for them and with them. The work of the institution couldn't be done without their collaboration, their understanding and commitment to everything that we do. So we go the extra mile in making sure that they have the ability to come together along with the full-time faculty to do the work that needs to be done, whether it's in learning outcomes or student support services or whatever. This is something that takes honest discussion, takes very determined, intentional efforts on the part of the management of the institution, with the realization that if we don't, we just cannot get the work done. Adjunct faculty today at my institution play a very, very important role. And differently from what most people think, because I did an analysis of who our adjunct faculty are. And what I find is that many of our adjunct faculty, teaching at the college is not the primary job, that they have a full-time job. They are lawyers, or they are architects, or they are engineers, or they are teachers in the school system, or you name it. And they do this because they love it. As a matter of fact, a significant number of our adjunct faculty donate the money to the institution because they do that out of the satisfaction of teaching. They love teaching, but they have other jobs and they make money on other jobs. But the point being, in response, direct response to your question, is it takes a very intentional, determined effort to get them involved. It cannot be a sideshow. They feel every convocation, everything that we do, they are part of it. Yes. Mark?
So, excuse me, Miami-Dade is a large producer of baccalaureate degrees now. So could you say how that happened? Also, the fields that you're granting your baccalaureate degrees tend to be ones that are much more associated with technical fields as compared to liberal arts fields. So I don't remember the exact list, but they're in IT, healthcare, business, and they're not in more traditional liberal arts kinds of areas. So the question is, when you made those decisions about the baccalaureate, they're much more aligned with, again, these kinds of technical areas. In the choice of those fields, what was the process behind those? What's the plans for expansion, if any? And what kind of recommendations would you have for other community colleges that either have the authority or would like the authority to expand into the baccalaureate production?
Okay. Well, the way Florida started allowing community colleges to offer baccalaureate has some history. They look at fields where there was tremendous demand. For example, you take teaching. In Florida, there was a need for about 16,000 teachers a year, new teachers. And all the universities together, including the privates, were only producing about 6,000 teachers. We ended up having to import teachers from as far as Great Britain, the Philippines, Idaho, Iowa, I mean, you name it, okay? A lot of money was being spent. A lot of money was being spent on bringing these people over and training them, etc. But cultural shock took care of them. Most of them did not last. And there was a very real need. So after the legislature begging the institutions to increase the production and getting no results, they decided that perhaps community colleges could do the job. And that's really how it started. The same was true in nursing. So when you look at our baccalaureates, our first two baccalaureates were in education and nursing. Now, on purpose, we selected the areas where there were a lot of jobs. Our baccalaureates in education are not in elementary education, or they are in secondary, math, science, physics, chemistry, and early childhood, where the demand really is. And in nursing, the same thing. But you are right. We have some in business, engineering. We have it. The last two that were approved were supply chain and logistics, which in Miami is a big thing. But the results of the baccalaureate experience in Florida says something. Our baccalaureates in Florida, and this is the state's numbers, have a higher placement rate, a higher retention rate, and a higher beginning earnings for those graduates than the average baccalaureates for the universities. And in areas like education, the learning gains of our teachers, the teachers we graduate at Miami-Dade College, are higher than the learning gains of the teachers that graduated from the 10 state universities. This is all the state figures. These baccalaureates were developed with a totally new approach, totally new understanding of what's needed, and I think they're serving a purpose. The placement rates are very, very high, are in the mid-90s to 100 in some cases. We have one, for example, in health science, physician assistant program. We cannot keep up with the demand. So it has been a good experience, not without controversy. The universities were very afraid at the beginning. Not the most established universities, but some of the universities were concerned that there were not enough students for all of us. And what we have demonstrated is that the average age of our students is 31 years old, which means that many students who before did not have the access nor the opportunity to go into flexible schedules, etc., are now coming to the college to get, their careers and their degrees. So the program is growing, and they're serving a significant need in the community.
Dr. Padrone, I had a question related to, you had mentioned the three-tiered advising model.
I'm sorry.
The three-tiered advising model, academic advising model. So I wanted to kind of bring us back to the student intentionality in particular. So with tens of thousands of students at MDC, what does that kind of look like briefly?
Crazy. It is not easy. And one of the things that I have discussed with the faculty, not just me, but the provost and everybody else, is the fact that we cannot depend on just academic advisors to do the job. One of the things we need faculty to do more and more is to be involved. And to understand that the more they are, the more resources we will have to support them. Because every time we have to hire an academic advisor, it's less money that we have to compensate faculty properly to do the things they need and support them. The faculty has been very, very understanding. Not everybody's on board, but we have really almost doubled the amount of students being handled by the faculty. You know, and to do academic advising requires a lot of training. Just to say I'm academic advisor, the same thing that you were discussing before, really guiding the students on careers and what they need to do takes a tremendous updating and effort. So we do a lot of professional development there again. But we just hired 25 new advisors, and it's never enough. Because, and the reason why we divided the three-tier system is because to identify the students who have the greatest needs, the ones that are at a different level, and so forth and so on. And many of us also do advisement, which also means that I have to spend a lot of time getting trained. Because it's not just to say because I have been president of the institution, I know it all. I don't know anything. So I need to go and get trained to really provide a good advisement that, you know, that the students need today. But the answer is it's not easy. I mean, we're a very large institution, and, but I think we're doing the right thing for the students. The same thing with developmental education. The boot camps are working fantastic for us because many of the students avoid going to developmental programs because of the boot camps, or have to take a higher level as opposed to a lower level of developmental. So all these things are working. Taking them to scale is a big, big challenge for all of us, as you well know. But it is the right thing to do. And that's the reason why I made the comment about our friends from the legislatures. Because as many of you have heard me say before, with well-meaning legislators, at the same time, we have a situation when there is no money to send, the temptation is to send regulations. So we have a lot of unfunded mandates that are very difficult to live with unless you have the support that you need. And so we're trying to do the best. Thank you.